Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the ESPON Seminar, a collaborative effort with the Spanish EU presidency. And welcome to the city of Cuenca, a city that truly embodies the spirit of Europe that focuses on smaller treasures. As we gather in this historic place, we are reminded of the rich potential that every unique region holds. Cuenca is a proof that when faced with territorial challenges, cities can transform and thrive, fostering sustainable growth and dynamic communities. The gap between urban areas and rural territories and even smaller cities is a reality that translates into a difference in rights and opportunities. The problems of depopulated territories have emerged as a public problem with great intensity in recent years in Spain. But it has not been until 2020 when this has been addressed from a national perspective. The current government of Spain has launched a national policy to combat depopulation and socio-territorial imbalances, and even forming a new ministry in charge of this public issue and promoting a battery of initiatives. And in this line, the Spanish presidency of the EU is presented as an opportunity to focus public efforts on advancing towards a society that guarantees something as essential as equal rights and opportunities throughout the whole European territory. Over in Castilla-La Mancha, the leadership, and in particular that of Vice President José Luis Martínez Guijarro, showcases what's possible when a region focuses on its own development. Their vision for a dynamic, connected future serves as a beacon across Spain. And this commitment to the territory translates into a development that prioritizes connectivity and inclusivity. So, as you might be guessing by now, the aim of this seminar is to bridge distances and focus on what brings us together. And that is ensuring that every locality, urban or rural, thrives equally. Our agenda is all about connection, innovation, inclusion, and cohesion, because cohesion is at the heart of the European mission. It played a critical role during the COVID crisis, and now we're refocusing on its main objective, minimizing regional disparities and nurturing sustainable regional development. Investing in essential areas like public services, infrastructure, skill building, and governance has been key to promoting progress. However, it is clear that these benefits have been uneven, often favoring urban centers, as we might expect. There is a need for a tailored investment strategy that appreciates the unique contribution of smaller cities. Also, innovation drives regional economic prosperity, and again, disparities remain. Some regions are trailing, lacking a targeted approach to innovation and the creation of regional ecosystems that could harness local talent and adapt to new opportunities. The seminar is set against the backdrop of two goals. The first one is implementing the Territorial Agenda 2030, and the second is advocating for a territorial model that includes small and medium-sized cities. We will also explore the evolving dynamics between urban and rural areas, recognizing the potential of smaller cities to mediate these relationships. And as we move through these topics, I'm going to encourage everyone to click on slido.com, maybe if you feel like doing it now. Slido is an intuitive platform that will let you engage directly with the speakers and ask questions throughout the sessions. So if you click now on slido.com and you introduce the hashtag ESPON, you will then find a space where you can enter your questions, and these questions will be transferred directly to the speakers. And now let me briefly introduce our first speakers who will bring some of these topics to life. Speakers like EU Commissioner for Cohesion and Reforms, Elisa Ferreira, the third Vice President of the Government of Spain and Ministry of Ecological Transition and Demographical Challenge, Teresa Ribera, the Vice President of Castilla-La Mancha, José Luis Martínez Guijarro, the Mayor of Cuenca, Darío Dols, the President of the Provincial Council of Cuenca, Álvaro Martínez Chana, the ESPON Managing Authority, Timo Esser, and the Director of ESPON EGTC, Viktor Shidarovsky. Each one will provide the perspective that will challenge us to think differently. So thank you for joining us today. And now let's turn our attention to a key voice in the dialogue on cohesion and reforms. And I'd like to ask the technical team to please play the video of Commissioner Elisa Ferreira. Thank you.
Dear researchers, dear participants, as you know, I have long been convinced that Europe's small and medium-sized cities have a key role to play in development. 43% of Europe's population live in such cities. Yet, for too long, most of the new jobs and most of the high added value jobs have concentrated in a few large cities. If we can level the playing field, this will be a triple win. For smaller cities and their regions, that will have increased opportunities. For larger cities, that will have reduced their congestion costs. And for Europeans, we will be able to combine high-end jobs with the potential high quality of life of those cities. So I am delighted that the extensive territorial research capacity of ESPON is being mobilized in the cause of the small and medium-sized cities. My sincere thanks both to ESPON and also to the Spanish presidency for promoting this initiative. Your work is crucial. The last few years have taught us the importance of real-time data in adapting policies to a rapidly changing reality. ESPON has been providing in-depth territorial analysis for over 20 years now, but today, more than ever, we need you. We need your data, we need your analysis to guide cohesion policies investments. For example, the 24 billion euros set aside to support investments in sustainable urban development strategies. We need your data and analysis on the specific needs and strategies of different cities. Successful action requires a precise diagnosis of the gaps and of the structural challenges. And finally, we need your data and your analysis for cities as they play the role of anchors for the broader region. This will be particularly important in the future development of the rural areas, the rural regions as well as regions which are stuck in development traps. As we set out in the long-term vision for rural areas, such regions rely on small and medium-sized cities. They expect these cities to act as locomotives of development. But as we also noted in our communication on harnessing talent in Europe's regions, this requires a broader view of the functional area, of the skills and of the resources needed, not just inside the city and for the city, but for the whole region. This is why we have proposed a talent booster mechanism to help European territories tackle these challenges. But for such a mechanism to succeed, we need reliable intelligence and analysis at both the level of the city and the level of the functional area. The first major event of partners in the Harnessing Talent platform will take place in Brussels on the 23rd and 24th of November. I encourage you all to contribute. So there is work to be done, and I am very, very glad that ESPON members are our full partners in this work, providing data on the situation and needs of Europe's small and medium-sized cities and the contribution they can make to the broader functional area. I look forward to hearing your contributions as we gather evidence for the 9th cohesion report to be published next spring. I wish you fruitful discussions, and I look forward to hearing the results. Thank you so, so much. Thank you.
Commissioner Elisa pointed out the crucial role that Europe's smaller cities have in regional growth and the benefits of supporting them. By giving the cities more opportunities, we can also help larger cities improve the overall quality of life in Europe. The upcoming session will build on these ideas, discussing how small and medium-sized cities will be the key to achieving the Spanish presidency's goals and the Territorial Agenda 2030 vision. To begin this exploration, we're going to turn to Ministry Ribera, but first I want to invite the speakers to come onto the stage and to begin this session. Please, Darío Dolz, Álvaro Martínez Chana, Juan Luis Martínez Guijarro, Víctor Sidarowski, and Timo Esser, please come to the stage. As I was saying, to begin this exploration, we're going to turn to Ministry Teresa Ribera, who will offer us her unique perspective on how the cities are being integrated into the heart of the Spanish presidency's priorities. And now I'm going to ask the technical team to play the video of...
Bienvenidos a esta reunión tan importante. Welcome to this important meeting where we have very important and varied actors, such as Commissioner Elisa Ferreira, our very dear colleague with whom we share many goals and the message, even though we cannot be with you today. It is a key meeting that revolves around a very important program, ESPON program, that is aiming at working in the territory since 2022, aimed at small and medium-sized cities that will help us understand that in Europe, we need to keep working so that the quality of life, the services, etc., are something that is present everywhere and that we need to pay attention to from all levels of the administration with the greatest involvement of the local actors, and making sure that in all the programs supported by the European institutions, that is closer to the ground, that is focused on the goals that we are facing at the moment, and understanding that the capability of working in a network and the capability of finding a cohesion of the different urban centers where we can have access to all the opportunities, the attraction of young talent is a key for us all, because nobody wants to live in a territory that nobody cares about, because this the existence of this type of territories will be a burden on us all citizens of Europe, because we all want to live in a place where we have access to basic services and resources and with dignity. So the fact that the government of Castilla-La Mancha and the different local authorities that are attending this seminar, and also the capacities that we have around associations and local groups are very welcome in our territory at this time during the Spanish presidency of the European Union, knowing that the Spanish case is not an isolated one. Our demography is particular and it might be different from what is happening in the center of Europe, but we know that we share many concerns and many goals with our European partners. Since 2022, the ESPON program has been identifying the priorities that have been translated into pluriannual initiatives, and we need to respond to the four that are gathered in this seminar, something that will allow to have more resilient territories and that enable us to respond to the challenges of the climate change, the loss of diversity, and the impacts of them both in terms of cohesion, lack of access to the same opportunities, and the decrease in the conditions of life of the inhabitants in the rural areas. This is a program that will for sure facilitate the functionality of the different territories, but also the interconnection among such territories. The infrastructures, social innovation, the attraction of young talent are the main drivers for this change and the consolidation of the opportunities, both in the present and in the future. This is why we want to listen, and we want to make sure that in all the topics that you discuss in the different sessions with actors so varied as those that we can see here, of those of you who are present here today, can be very useful to reach conclusions that will enable us to prepare to draft a declaration from Cuenca that reflects the mobilization, the will of mobilizing the human talent, the human capital, and the investing capital in our territories. We cannot solve any of the challenges that we need to face in an isolated manner. To join forces clearly multiplies the results, the outcomes that need to be positive, both at a territorial level and among people. There's no territorial cohesion if we do not talk and if we do not include social cohesion.
So listening to Minister Teresa Ribera, I think it's a good moment and a good opportunity to challenge our beliefs about the small cities and urban areas, which are defined as not important, and try to find the unique contributions that smaller cities and medium-sized cities and urban areas hold and can bring to the rest of the population. So now I'm going to invite José Luis Martínez Guijarro to come to the stage, who will share valuable insights about the regional fight against depopulation. Thank you.
Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Greetings to my colleague panelists, the representatives of ESPON, the mayor, of course, and the president of the deputation. Also, greetings to Paco. Thank you all. I also want to thank the government of Spain for holding the seminar here in Cuenca. Cuenca was the source, the origin, as Teresa Ribera said. She was talking about a potential new declaration of Cuenca. There was a previous Cuenca declaration signed by all the regional governments. We created a working group for the demographic challenges, and we created the first declaration of Cuenca, and this led to the creation of the figure of the commissioner through a conference of presidents, because we put the topic of depopulation on the table and made it one of the main topics in the conference of presidents. I hope that this seminar will lead to a new declaration to cover the aspects that were not covered in the previous declaration. I would like to thank the mayor of Soria, the subdelegate of the government, the commissioner of the demographic challenge in Castilla-La Mancha, and the rest of regional ministers that are here. And also, I want to welcome all of you who have come from abroad, from outside, to this seminar. You are in Cuenca, in Castilla-La Mancha, a region that is mainly rural, a region where the territorial structure, the demographic structure, make the main issue in our region the depopulation issue. There are over 20 areas where we have less than 12.5 inhabitants per square kilometer, which is the figure marked by the European Union as the bottom line, under which we start talking about a real issue with depopulation. From the regional government, we are proposing to launch a series of measures to face this issue, a series of measures that came about after a political and social consensus that was signed by the trade unions, by the employers, by the rural development groups, and this led to the work behind a law that was a pioneering law to fight the depopulation issue. It is based on three pillars: the guarantee of the public services in these territories, the guarantee of the provision of the public services in these territories in the same manner as in the urban areas in a region. I'm talking about health, I'm talking about education, I'm talking about social services, but we have also added to this mobility as a key public service. Public transport is one of the main needs that we have in order to articulate and to give a real backbone to the whole of the territory. Then we have the economic development promotion. For this, we need to incentivize in a positive manner all the companies, self-employed people who want to have their businesses in these territories. The increase in the subsidies for companies and for projects that are based in these territories, hand in hand with bet on the deployment of new technologies. It is impossible in this century to overcome the depopulation issue if we do not have the proper deployment of optic fiber and new technologies that enable us to receive the services and to provide the companies the necessary conditions to fight in a leveled field, so to speak. Also, we need a differentiated tax policy that makes it attractive for the people to live in these territories by reducing, for instance, the income taxes that these citizens are paying. So these would be our lines of action. We have been implementing different measures together with the Spanish government, who for the first time has included these demographic policies in one of the ministries. And we're also working with the European Union institutions to tackle this issue through the Committee of the Regions, which is the body that enables the regional governments to participate in the European Union initiatives and policies. And the challenges for all of us who are involved in fighting depopulation is to manage the European Union institutions to have a global pact in terms of the initiatives against depopulation. These initiatives, this will need to be taken into account for the future legislature and with a specific funding for the specific territories so that we do not have to compete when attracting structural funds with the urban areas or other territories that have other types of issues. I think this is our main challenge for us in the coming years. And we know that the commissioner and other people in charge within the European Union institutions favor the creation of this European strategy against depopulation, or you can call it to tackle the demographic issue. We will keep working with the Spanish government and talking with the European Union institutions to attract as many people as possible to work with us towards tackling this issue. And this is why all the networks, all the institutions who are working around the European Union institutions need to join forces. And in this sense, we need to hold seminars, meetings like this one that we are having here in Cuenca. This is a key thing, a key initiative where we find people who are truly committed with this issue. And I would like to ask you all to really join forces, work together, because we cannot have a territorial cohesion in any territory if the rural areas do not have the same conditions for accessing services or they lack the same opportunities as other regions. So the interaction between the small cities and their influential area is absolutely key. This is very clear for us, to the point that we want to go to the smallest regions. We're talking about small villages. We're talking about some regions that have only 2,000 inhabitants, but they're drivers, they're key, and they are a must for the development of the region. Clearly, small and medium-sized cities like Cuenca need to be more attractive too. I wouldn't like to take too much of your time because I could be talking about this topic for hours, but just to finish, I would like to thank you again for being here in Cuenca discussing these topics, and I hope that the conclusions can help to have all the institutions working together to achieve that goal at a European level to fight depopulation. And I would like to ask you two favors. The things that you have not liked about the organization, about the city, please let us know so that we can correct it looking forward in the next seminars, in the next conference that we might hold, and also to fix anything that you haven't liked around the city, around the region. But the things that you like, please tell other people. Tourism is one of the main potentials of the smaller cities, of the rural areas, and the mouth-to-mouth information is always the best advertising. So I want to wish you all a fruitful session. I want to wish you a great stay here in Cuenca and in the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been amazing to hear all these initiatives that are being put in place to fight against the depopulation. And I want to remind you about the Slido. If you want to pose questions to the speakers and have like more interactive event, you have the instructions there, and you can start by now. And now I'm pleased to introduce Darío Dols, who will discuss the pivotal role of medium and small cities in territorial cohesion and the specific challenges faced by Cuenca and the strategies to retain population in the city. Welcome.
Good morning. Welcome to the city of Cuenca. Y ahora ya en español.
And now I will move to Spanish. So everybody can understand. Welcome to the city of Cuenca. And thank you, Paco, for coming back to Cuenca. And please give my gratitude and my best regards to our Minister, Teresa, for having chosen Cuenca for the organization of this ESPON Seminar. I think it was easy to choose a city such as Cuenca due to its typology, but really, thank you. Thank you so much, Paco. And again, my warmest welcome to you and your team to the city of Cuenca. Of course, I extend these greetings to all the authorities, as the President himself said. He already referred to the city, and please retain his words in your mind. As I said, this event, it actually makes sense for it to have it here in the city of Cuenca, because we are a small, medium-sized city with about 55,000 inhabitants, and we are a referent across the region and in what we're going to be discussing today here. Just to give you some information of the city and the path we are moving along and what we want to do and achieve in future. Our economic driver is tourism. It is our main asset for the generation of employment. And one of the best proves is also the Congress tourism, and this is one of the best examples. We have ESPON in the city of Cuenca this week, and just to give you an idea, in the last month to month and a half, we've had more than 20 congresses being held in Cuenca, and those congresses brought together around 6,000 people who have been living, eating, drinking, sleeping in the city of Cuenca, and particularly in the week, not so much in the weekend, from Monday to Friday. So this gives us an important boost as the main driver, as I said, in city for a city like Cuenca. And again, as I said, this is one of the main, or maybe the main economic driver for Cuenca. Let me just say that we aim to be the capital city of Spain for gastronomic purposes, and I believe you have already tried some of our dishes, and this has been yet another driver that has moved many people to come to Cuenca, particularly in the weekend, to try and taste our cuisine. We are still leading that Spanish capital nature of cuisine and gastronomy, and this will no doubt give the city an extra boost. And you are also here in a city which is a human heritage site. We will celebrate the 27th anniversary of the Declaration of Cuenca as a heritage site by UNESCO. There are only just a few cities in Spain, no more than 20, that have that honor, and Cuenca is one of them, one of those cities. I would like to welcome the mayor of Soria, dear Carlos. We didn't know each other personally, and I shall visit the city of Soria because I know you are doing so many good things, and I would like to copy some of your ideas. Let me just be clear and blunt here, because I think your management and your leadership has been fantastic in your city. Just to give you some more information about what we're doing from the Council of Cuenca, we're just working on a touristic sustainability scheme. As I said, tourism is the main economic driver for us, and we're working together with the Ministry, the Association of Communities, and of course the Council of Cuenca. We are trying to seek better competitiveness for the city, for the implementation of touristic smart mechanisms. We are working together with the other two administrations for the implementation of new paths, new smart ways around tourism that will have an impact to increase the economy in the city and to also improve the quality of this main driver for the city. We have also set ourselves the goal to become a remote work friendly city. As you know, many people after the pandemic have delocalized their working places in Cuenca, as the Vice President also mentioned, thanks to the alignment of the administration together with the central state, the deputations, and we'd like to salute also Mr. Álvaro Martínez Chana, the president of the deputation of Cuenca. We are, with all this effort, in the best path. We are a capital that works together with the rest of the region, and as the commissioner also mentioned, we need specific funds so that we can revert and we can invest in the territory, and thanks to its size, Cuenca can be one of the main areas for such investment that should go to small and medium-sized cities and towns. And you are not just in a city that is known for its gastronomy and a heritage site, as I said. Apart from this historical and cultural heritage, this is a medieval city. We have a medieval wall, and we have some of the finest contemporary art pieces in Spain, and I would dare say in the world. We are also surrounded by very rich and lush vegetation. The Council of Cuenca is the main owner of forest land in Spain, and I would say it's one of the largest in Europe. We have 54,000 forest hectares that belong to the town, to the council of Cuenca. And this is also an asset that we want to mobilize in a coherent and sustainable manner. Just to give you an idea of this heritage, we have 25 mountains which have been selected as of public use, and some of them have a sustainability plan in place for their use, which in some cases have been in place for 100 years. And I'm referring to a mountain that is not far from the city of Cuenca. This is also an asset that we want to mobilize to fight against depopulation in the city and across the province. And we are working hard for the mobilization of these large green assets that we have in the city and the province of Cuenca. I'm referring to the Urban Forest Innovation Lab, co-financed by Europe. We have just finished the first stage, and we have now applied for a new program with the aim of, together with many other stakeholders, the Assembly of Communities, the Council, and many other people. And I would like to say something because we are also mobilizing from the deputation a technological scientific park linked to circular economy and bioforestal economy in order to join population and activities, economic activities, and we will also have more technical activities. We will have a clear idea about the challenge we have ahead of us as small and medium-sized cities. So this is the demographic challenge. And just in finishing, I would like to say that this program is part of the strategy of the High Commissioner of Spain, together with an entrepreneurship action. And for quite a few years, we have been an example of entrepreneurship, and we want to continue down this path, applying this model. And as the Vice President said, we hope and we will look forward to that new declaration of Cuenca coming from this seminar. And finally, I would like to say, please enjoy the city of Cuenca, enjoy its streets and its alleyways. I am sure that you will also be doing activities as part of this seminar to visit the city, and please do take to the streets, enjoy the city, just stop and hear your footsteps on the cobbled streets in this city, and please enjoy, take in our city, and you have some beautiful, beautiful views from this very museum, and please come back to the city of Cuenca. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you very much, Dario, and congratulations to Cuenca for being a World Heritage Site. And thank you for letting us know the potential of Cuenca to become a hub that facilitates the relationships between the urban and rural areas. Thank you so much. Now, I'm going to welcome Álvaro Martínez Chana, who is ready to shed light on creating active, inclusive, and functional territories from a local perspective. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I will not repeat the greetings by the Vice President and the Mayor, but I would like to thank the Ministry, Paco, Juana, also the representatives from ESPON, for having chosen our city, for having chosen our province, and particularly for bringing together different administrations, which sometimes might appear to be far away, such as the European Commission, the Ministry itself sometimes. Thank you for giving us the floor and giving us a voice, because these type of forums is important for the exchange of impressions, but also to hear the voice of the different territories by these institutions. We need to be heard. And if you not only hear us, but also attend to our requests, then so much the better. And I attest to that because this is what we have been seeing for some time. The election of Cuenca, it may have been Soria, why not? Dear Carlos, we are sister provinces in the type of population we have and how we work in our capital cities, and having chosen Cuenca as the venue has been a very positive thing from the point of view of the big challenge we have. And I would also like to thank you for having invited us as a provincial institution. Many people come from abroad and from outside of our region and from our country, and maybe the concept of provincial deputations does not exist or is not really known. You have the state, you have regions, you have councils, but maybe the singularity, the particularities of the deputations, diputaciones, is something that is not quite familiar elsewhere in Europe. We are intermediary entities, and as just to give you an idea of what we are the council of the councils, with a special relevance and importance in provinces such as ours, where the large majority of the population comes from rural backgrounds. So for us to have a voice here is also that we very much appreciate. Our province is an scarcely populated province. This was declared by the European Commission itself. We have not even 200,000 inhabitants. Many cities around Madrid in the metropolitan area are much larger than the entire province of Cuenca in terms of population, and this comes from a historical background which we must always keep in mind when it comes to analyzing and also taking the necessary measures. The demographic challenge, depopulation, is not something new. It has been happening for decades in this province. But the visibility that this depopulation has had is related to what we start seeing in some of the province capital cities, when people in small villages and towns leave to try and find a better life somewhere else, they used to migrate to either the capital city or to those working and industrial hubs. We started losing population in our capital cities, and this is what starts to reflect our main concern. It is true that the capital city, in this particular case, the city of Cuenca, is closely related to its province. Most of the population in the capital city comes from small towns and villages in the region of Cuenca. And this is where I think we start to raise awareness and to visualize the problem, which is in the early stages now. We try to find a solution to this issue. It is true that in the latest times, together with this awareness-raising activity, we've had some sort of response from the administration, from the Commission itself, and also including the Spanish Ministry and the regional government. And I can give you several examples in this line in the last 4 years, such as, for instance, the recognition as a scarcely populated area and those benefits, those mechanisms for a better functioning of our cities, something that we claimed for a long time through the ESPA program. And I want to say, dear Paco, that we are even more ambitious, and we want those mechanisms to be also more ambitious. It is a kind of positive discrimination that has worked in Nordic countries, but that has to be implemented strongly here. And the government of Spain has taken this to heart. It has taken it very, very seriously. The ministry led by Vice President Teresa Ribera can actually attest to this with the facts and also with the funds, with the money, which is a fundamental part, although it's not the only thing, of course. In Castilla-La Mancha, and the Deputy President has actually explained it clearly, we are a good example. We've done a lot of work. The Deputy President, Vice President, has worked personally to this, and this is an example through the Act for Fighting Depopulation, which for us, for the territories, is basically the best asset and the best tools that we can use for that guarantee of services and this positive discrimination that I just referred to. And it is basic, it is essential for these policies not to stop there. They need to have certain continuity, and it appears that this continuity is actually assured in coming years, because it is essential to have all administrations working on the same wavelength, on the same line, and that all the representatives of the citizens should have a clear idea and a clear plan of action in mind. These are actions that in the capital city of Cuenca, as my colleague, my dear Darío said, actually entail changing the services. We are a city of services, and we need to push forward the industrial part and using our own resources, i.e. the forests. And that's why we embarked on the creation of this scientific and technological park, which is not only related to our capital, it also will have an effect, a positive effect, across the province. We want to work on what we have. Our province is a rural province, and it is agro-industrial in nature, and therefore we need to develop those things we already have. It is also a province that has a great touristic potential, as we are seeing. And this is also remarkable. And this is one of the ways that we have taken from the deputation, and something we will continue to work on in coming years. But we still need something, and this was one of the original causes when it came to explaining depopulation and the demographic challenge. That's industrialization. Many of our people left, migrated to other areas where the industry was very strong. And therefore, in provinces such as Cuenca, we need to try and make the most of what we have, what we enjoy, our local products, biomass, or agro-industrial products, renewable energies. We need to remind ourselves that this province, this region, is one of the main drivers and one of the powers in this type of energy generation. We need to be aware that sometimes it's not easy to delocalize certain activities, and we need to industrialize a province that really needs that industrialization. From the deputation, we have been working really hard. We will continue to do so, and in these last 4 years, we tried to ensure and secure the investment necessary that have led to the investment of more than 168 million euros in mobility, in infrastructures, in sporting infrastructures, and also leisure infrastructures, which are key. Also, we have implemented new services in some of the rural areas. This very week, we visited a program for the delivery of food, home delivery of food. We worked also around the health systems. We need to bring culture to these areas. We also have the right to enjoy culture with singular projects such as those remote work centers in which we work with the ministry, and the Arraigo project. We have its director here in the room, which this is a program that has been working very significantly in Cuenca. We have always said that in provinces such as Cuenca, in order to ensure the services, and this is a quote from the Vice President, you either have to do it from the public powers, or it would be very difficult for these services to be insured. We will never see a private company come here to set up a school or a hospital. There is no profitability for that. But also in provinces such as Cuenca, it is either the public takes the lead, together with the businesses and with the industry, or it would be very difficult for us to develop. We need to be the traction force, we need to be the driving force, and we need to do what we are set to do from the European Union in terms of PPPs. But for that, we need instruments. Funding is key, and I also claim more funds, of course, but the regulation is even more important. And in territories such as Cuenca, in order to ensure equality of opportunities, it is either you adapt the norms and the regulations to the territory, or we will never do it. I firmly believe that those regulations need to adapt to the realities of each territory, of each area, and treating a town of only, or a village of 20 inhabitants equally to how a big city is dealt with, a treaty will only lead to more inequalities. And therefore, I would also like to debate those conclusions, just as we will do with the access to resources, where water and energy are absolutely paramount. And sadly, we find ourselves very often where we have projects that cannot go ahead because of the lack of access to those resources. Having said that, I think we are going in the same in the right path. In the province of Cuenca, we have earned 2,000 people. That's 2% more population, and this only makes us really happy and wanting to work even more in the same direction, so that this long-term challenge, which I know will not be easy and we will have many hurdles along the way, but I am sure we will succeed together. Please enjoy the seminar and enjoy the city of Cuenca. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that positive last note, Álvaro. And I will share something that maybe most of you don't know about the province of Cuenca, and that is the province of Cuenca is a paradise for climbers all around the world. And yeah, I think that makes the province very, very attractive for people that come here to enjoy the nature and the big walls that we can see everywhere. Thank you. Now we're going to welcome Timo Esser, who will present how ESPON's current program aligns with the development of small and medium cities. And this is a continuation of a long tradition on in-depth territorial studies. Welcome, Timo.
Thank you very much. And I would like to start first with some sincere thanks to Minister Ribera, its team, Joanna, excellencies, that we can be here and hold the seminar and find all these good conditions. And what also is exciting for us from the ESPON side is, in fact, our mission is to create evidence and nurture policy processes. And we have the feeling now, listening to your intervention, that we can really contribute to a policy process here in Spain. And this is our DNA. This is what we are here for, to make this link, to bridge research with policy process going on and to forward that. And therefore, for us, it's also very exciting to see how things are developing here and to see how this multi-level governance, I would like to say, is functioning. And this is also now, for us, the possibility to set a bit the frame. I mean, this introductory panel was under the headline of the territorial agenda and the territorial contract, and I would like to refer a bit to these elements. Because, I mean, why are we talking about small and medium-sized cities? I think we come from a narrative like from 10, 12 years ago, where Europe, after the economic and financial crisis, tried to find its way out. And there was a strong narrative about metropolitan regions being the drivers for the economy. And I think we experienced after this narrative that some regions felt left behind. There was a kind of uneasiness that we are not aware that, in fact, the whole territory does not consist only of metropolitan areas, but we have different kind of regions. They all have a role in the economic development, and we have to acknowledge this role. And we have a lot of narratives about innovation, about accessibility and so on, which is often related to connect Europe with the world. But in fact, the functioning of the territory depends on how can we actually integrate all regions. And I think that brings us also back to the idea of the territorial agenda, which evokes that every region has to find its role. And I think when I listen to your honoris, there is really a commitment and a search to define the role and to find the niche. And I think that's also a proof that the only way out of this crisis is to find a place, to define a place-based approach which takes note of the conditions. And we know that, for example, innovation has a different meaning in metropolitan areas, in areas which have a high level of research, which compete on the global level. But we also see, and I think you were showing that very clearly, we see how research innovation has to take place in small and medium-sized cities. And this is quite important, really, to then join all forces. And this brings me to the notion of the territorial contract. I mean, we have a multi-level governance, and this sounds very theoretical, but in practical terms, we have national level, we have EU level, which offers funding, we have regional level, we have the collaboration of authorities, we have the cities, and we see very well how you have to interact and clarify the different roles. You have to organize the resources, and you have to see to organize processes. And in this interplay, where everybody has to bring in its commitment, the territorial contract can play a quite important role in different ways. First, it clarifies tasks, it clarifies who can bring in what. Secondly, it clarifies procedures. I mean, how are we collaborating? And thirdly, it also enforces commitment. I mean, by clarifying all these elements and knowing then within a kind of contractual situation, we can also better rely on what our partners are contributing to that. And it also sets, in a way, a time frame. So, I mean, we know that policies, sometimes politics, tend to enter debates which sometimes may take too long, and a kind of contractual relation can also provide a certain time frame. So what you can say, I mean, kind of discussing the context of a territorial contract is in a way, on one side, oil, but also glue for getting all the actors together. And coming back to my introduction, we are very happy if we can contribute, and being here discussing with you now, we think we are in the right place. And we are very happy and open to offer our expertise and in the discussion deepen all what we can bring from the ESPON side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Timo, for focusing and sharing how valuable is the data to back up all the progress development programs. Thank you so much. And finally, we have Victor Sidarowski, who will focus on ESPON's comprehensive analysis and studies that support the diverse urban landscape, from small towns to metropolitan areas and everything in between. Thank you.
Dear host, dear Spanish presidency, dear excellencies, dear ESPON community. It's always difficult to speak after Timo, because I don't know what Timo is going to say. So I have to improvise, and I'll maybe surprise our moderator, but I will have it short, very short. Marcia, we know. So let me do a certain address to the presidency. I think that you do a lot. You know a lot. You work together for a lot, for a good case. You want the small and medium-sized cities and towns to be hubs, territorial anchors, drivers, locomotives, you name it. So, do you really need us? I would like to ask you a question, if you really need us. I think that probably you still need us. And why you need us is that twice a year, ESPON provides you with something that I call collective competence, collective knowledge. We come from near and afar, from small towns, from medium cities, from large cities, from bigger regions, sparsely populated, mountainous, you name it. So we know our specific problems. We know also specific solutions. We can easily connect you and get connected from you to our places, because we believe that the collective competence is also about getting inspiration, but also be inspired with what all you have been doing. In our policy paper that will be soon out, we identified a lot of interesting pathways. Some of those pathways come from your towns and cities, because we feel it's very inspirational for the whole of ESPON community. All 31 member states and partner countries know more about what you have been doing that successfully to turn the tide of development. But still we think that the good example of some other towns and cities might bring you a lot of inspiration. So let us use this collective competence and experience here in the room, and feel free to also walk our pathways with cobblestones, with dirt roads sometimes, but sometimes with a good light prospect for the future. And this is what we are here for, good prospect for the future, for the presidency, and also for all us in ESPON community. Many thanks for inviting us.
Thank you for your valuable insights into the role of small and medium-sized cities in shaping the future of Europe. Thank you. So as we wrap up our first session, I would like to invite you to come back to your seats, because we are going to move to the second session of the day. Thank you so much. And now we are heading into a session that is going to steer this conversation even further. This session, the name of this session is Provocative Cities, Small and Medium-Sized Cities, and the Debate on the Future of Cohesion Policy. In this session, we'll examine the evolving role of urban areas in cohesion policy. And here I want to welcome Marcia van der Vlucht from the ESPON MC in Netherlands, who will guide this session as the moderator and bring in her knowledge from the Ministry of the Interior and Kingdom Relations. Thank you and welcome, Marcia.
Gracias, Hannah. Buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here. As said, my name is Marcia. I'm MC member for the Netherlands, working for the Ministry of Interior and Kingdom Relations, and it is indeed an honor to be able to facilitate this session in such a beautiful old city. Some of you might know that the Netherlands is also a country that is very much polycentric. In our spatial planning, polycentricity has always had a central role. And myself, coming from what we call smaller city, living in an historical city center, I really enjoy seeing the old city center of Cuenca. It is beautiful and it is to be treasured. But we are here to talk about polycentricity, a polycentric territorial system based on small and medium-sized as well as intermediary cities. Our speakers will highlight the role of these small and medium-sized cities and to tackle place-based responses to the local but also global challenges we face. The small and medium-sized cities diverge from large cities in terms of local challenges, available resources and linkages with the surrounding areas. They also have a key role to play in rural areas, promoting positive synergies with these areas and the rural environment. Small urban areas form the backbone of the polycentric urban system within the EU, and they play a crucial role in regional economical development and social well-being, particularly with national and international accessibility and adequate access to services and local and regional levels. So, local and regional decision makers can be involved to strengthen cooperation in long-term local strategies between the neighbouring areas, and our panellists will give you all an insight into what instruments might be of use. So, with no further ado, I would like to ask the speakers and the panellists to join me on the stage, and I will introduce them to you. Mrs. Mercedes Molina, she's an emeritus professor of human geography, and her research focused on the study of depopulation in disadvantaged territories in the EU, particularly in Spain. She's manifested in numerous projects, publication, conferences, and scientific meetings, and actively contributed in recent years to the development of the report approved by European Parliament on demographic challenges, participated in the reform of the European Regional Development Fund, and currently collaborates with the Spanish Directorate General of Policies Against Depopulation. Mercedes, may I invite you? Online will be joining us Piero Bassetti. He is currently president of Globus et Locus, an association of institutions whose objective it is to analyze major aspects of glocalization, as he calls it. And he's also president of the Giannino Bassetti Foundation. And he was the first president of the Lombardy region and member of Italian Parliament, former president of the Chamber of Commerce of Milan and of the Union of Italian Chambers of Commerce. He was also president of the Association of Chambers of Commerce Abroad, and he's editor-in-chief of Glocalism, Journal of Culture, Politics and Innovation. I would also like to invite Merja Hapaka. She is policy coordinator for the European Commission at the DG for Regional and Urban Development and has been key in I would like to say key in our not just territorial cohesion, but cohesion policy in the broader sense of the word, and knows all about the funds available, and we'll explain about that later on. I would also like to invite Nuria Materodana de Santos to the stage. She is a Doctor of Architecture with a master's degree in the conservation of architectural heritage, a dedicated professional educator and researcher, and throughout her career has focused on the management and enhancement of cultural heritage, advocating for collaborative design solutions and innovative mechanisms, particularly in the realms of cooperation and sustainable development. And last, but of course not least, Frances Boyer has been the General Secretary for the Demographic Challenge in the Ministry for Ecological Transition and the Demographic Challenge since October 2020, overseeing the development of the government strategy to address demographic challenges and depopulation. He has a background in local and regional governments, having served many regions. Please, join us at the stage. Thank you all, and at this moment I would like to invite Mercedes first to talk about intermediate cities and rurality in the social territorial cohesion new process. Thank you, Mercedes.
Autoridades, señoras y señores,
ladies and
sean mis
gentlemen,
primeras palabras de gratitud a los
I would like to thank
organizadores
first
por
of
su
all the
invitación,
organizers for
pero
their
sobre todo por
invitation,
asociar
and
cohesión y
in particular, I
territorio,
want to thank them for
significando
connecting
aquellos
cohesion and
lugares
territory,
imprescindibles
and giving importance to the unavoidable places in order to face a just transition that is much connected with the ecological transformation as well. Medium-sized and small-sized cities are the intermediate spaces, and they are the ones that can organize closed territory regardless of their size, and they create a new border between the rural and the urban areas that can establish internal flow systems that have a potential of connecting with the outside territories. The European Union is facing a series of challenges that are key, among which we need to highlight the imbalances connected to the social and territorial aspects. They are responsible of great inequalities in terms of rights and opportunities. We need to build greater opportunities, a more balanced society, focused in the public efforts with a new management of the territories. The Spanish government, for the first time, and due to the commitment of its president, puts these topics into the political agenda. And for the first time, demographic challenge and territory are topics that are becoming more visible thanks with exemplary measures. We need to consider certain questions that we are facing today. Why is there a greater discontent with an insatisfaction with in many territories that show certain deficiencies that are translated into political organizations, sometimes of an extreme nature, and this affects even the election results. Some territories are rebelling, and how can we explain certain positions that claim to public policies in order to face new challenges, while at the same time they defend neoliberal positions that try to undermine the role of public institutions? Why are we giving more importance to the territorial dimension and create an imbalance between the winning territories and the losing territories? The answer to all this, according to my research, the answer lies in that the prosperity and the big transformation endured by many countries due to the new world order after the crisis of the 1970s were connected to a short-term economic growth that marked the efficiency of the investment by the GDP, the income, and the employment based on territorial levels at the state level or sub-state level at the regional level in this case. There's also been an economic growth based on a territorial model connected with an employment model, production model, populational model that has been mainly directed by the urban systems. The bigger cities, the growing cities were the more efficient ones. They optimized the resources and they gathered a greater amount of investments, both from the public and private sectors. An intensive growth, the territorial dimension very much focused in the public policies have had positive effects, having regions and countries getting together or converging, but this has led to a lack of internal cohesion, and the socioeconomic gap between the larger and smaller cities has grown. The achievements were not connected to the environmental costs or the sustainability of the resources, and this has created grave problems that have had a planetary repercussion, that have activated the awareness at an international level and several commitments that have realized an ecological transition agenda, where the Agenda 2030 is the referral. We can identify a new paradigm in terms of production that should be more connected to a new territorial model, much more polycentric, and expressions such as just transition or leaving no one behind are buzzwords that we hear often. After the Paris conference in 2015, we see that there are more generalized commitments, better assumed commitments, but we also see behaviors that are not always positive. The planetary crisis and its effects are not considered as a problem that we all shared, but rather connected to certain ideologies, and they are often used as arguments for doing political opposition. The crises that we're seeing around us are having effects on the development. We see a greater narrowing of the goals according to the different industries, and this is directing also, or this also has territorial dimension and promotes the conflicts when it comes to the use of the land and the agricultural goals, the energy goals. In order for the ecological transition to be effective, we need to connect the unavoidable changes with social, economic, and environmental progress that is balanced and that is also egalitarian, territorially speaking. We are not talking about only an energy transition or a decarbonization process or the use of the renewable energies. All this needs to be connected with the rural development in the line of work from 1996 and 2016. The pure energy generation, power generation, does not generate automatically the local development. So public policies are a must in order to face the new challenges, and they need to be inclusive and not anybody outside. Because in the face of the economic changes that we are seeing, the new model and the new management of the territory are important things. At the point where we are, the small and mid-sized cities and the rural territories have their own dynamism or not. Will they be able to articulate the territory at an international level? For the first time, they're shedding a new light on them. The organization of local governments and cities joined in the Durban Declaration and the Quito Conference, together with the metropolization, has other cities as the drivers of the creation of such a background. The mayor of Soria, the current president of the GLU, has been key for this change. The Conference of United Nations Habitat held in the city of Mérida this very year, we bet on the creation of a new global agenda, urban and rural, called GURA, G-U-R-A. We're getting closer to a territorial agenda, fighting the bias of the urban agenda. And the European Union and ESPON are being more aware of the situation And the seminar that we're having here comes to highlight this point. And we do need ESPON, of course, going back to what has been said before. We can remind several important aspects. The exclusion of certain regions has decreased the possibilities of a general economic growth. Many resources have been ignored. The mid-sized cities are already experimenting an important economic growth following the actions of the SMEs that have been able to react much more better to the economic crisis, and also based on efficient investments, their insertion in the digitization process. They are the ones that have greater possibilities of seeing the interaction of local actors with the public institutions in order to create a better quality of life, in order to be more dynamic, in order to solve problems. This is why the possibilities of fulfilling the 2030 agenda are all the better. The preservation of talent, together with the sense of territorial identity, have enabled to have local entrepreneurship that are also sustainable, such as the hidden champions of Simon. We can connect this with the slow cities concept. Their scale enables the coming closer to the activities and services that are better placed, and that they depend less on the private transport. They also have greater possibilities of creating urban flows because of the optimization and the classification of the services, because also they push a value chain based on intra-territorial synergies in order to organize a demand and offer relationships. The push of entrepreneurship programs based on natural resources is a good example of all this, or the bioeconomy policy that is represented here by the mayor of the city of Soria is also something that could be highlighted. The conference and declaration of Cork have also been key in order to reflect the commitment of the European Union with regards to rural areas. The creation of territories that are alive, dynamic, that are capable of being resilient, that to be strong, that could be connected, all this before 2040, with all transformations that have pushed the rural proofing and the agricultural policies in the European Union, with the role of these cities in the food sector, both in terms of their transformation of the demand, the creation of intensive production that are sustainable, that are controlled, and the food needs to be inclusive too. Also, this has led to the application of the environmental sustainability in all the productive processes and the creation of environmental services. It has pushed a local value chain. There's also natural heritage, historic, artistic heritage, and legacy that have been also key to promote a cultural tourism that is more and more demanded every day. The diversification of the industries, the services related to tourism as a main activity are part of the heritage and part of the services, the needs of the mid-sized and small cities in a connected world. But all these potentials that we see in order to promote promote the development of the rural areas connected with these bigger cities depends on the capability of organizing public policies that are truly efficient and effective, because the time that these territories have been abandoned, for instance, in Spain, is for almost 60 years, require a very efficient public policy that is perfectly integrated. The market will not come and solve our problems. The laws of human capital, with all its consequences, derived from the aging of the population, of the demographic structure, and the lack of younger population, and often the lack of women, are part of this problem that really is hitting the rural areas and those that are most depopulated. We see the effects of the current situation, the lack of public services, even private services, due to the lack of demand in those territories, is very marked, and the lack of social rights are also hitting hard this type of territories, and probably women are the part of the population that is most affected by all this. In order to promote decentralizing processes, we need to have public policies at different levels where the local aspect is also taken into account. It is urgent to tackle the governance that has not been solved yet due to the variety of institutions and organisms that are connected to this. We need policies that can integrate the necessary ecological transition with the new territorial contract that has already been mentioned here, based the new ordinance of the territory, the configuration of a polycentric model with intermediate cities and the rural world requires a new European strategy. And we should not forgive the existing policy dating from 1999. We need this in order to turn the situation around, and so that citizens have the same rights and opportunities. We can only achieve these if we promote the unions between the rural and the urban areas when we undertake new processes, as nowadays we see those areas walking different paths. If we ignore these territories looking forward, the ecological transition will only be partial. We will achieve results, but without any economic or social or territorial cohesion. It is the responsibility of all of us, and I call up on the ethic of time, because we have a lot of potential for making integral changes, and tomorrow it will be too late. And please forgive me for my sore throat and the cold that I have in this time of the fall. Sorry.
Move further along to our panelists. Maria, we did hear Piero talk about the new functional geographies, and as he said, for tackling major challenges related to sustainable and urban growth, environmental issues, and economic and social innovation, by developing new forms of governance and cooperation between the larger cities and small and medium-sized cities, between traditional and innovative actors. And I would like you to ask if you can elaborate a little bit on the overall support of cohesion policy might be able to give to cities, focusing, of course, on small and medium-sized cities to tackle all these challenges.
Okay, thanks. And thank you also from my side. Is the mic on?
Yes, it is now.
From my side for the invitation to this lovely Cuenca. Yes, the previous speakers, including our Commissioner Ferreira, also have already mentioned a lot of useful things that we need to know about the challenges related to small and medium-sized cities and depopulation. issues that are also now emphasized by the Spanish presidency. Topical issue and usually put also by the presidency as a topic of small and medium-sized cities in the organization of territory and the role of that. Yes, the previous speakers, our keynote speakers, mentioned about the relation between global and local, the rural-urban linkages, diversification needs, all this. And indeed, the global transformations, changing demographics, biodiversity collapse, the digitalization, all this and the recent crisis indeed have challenged us to address more than ever through public policies the issues. And before going to necessarily for future cohesion policy, which is post-27, it's perhaps a need to reflect also how we are currently using the just negotiated and discussed and programmed funds and resources and possibilities to prepare for future, to allow the transformation to take place, and to prepare for future possible crises. So Commissioner Ferreira mentioned also the upcoming 9th cohesion report in spring next year. Cohesion report is always an analysis of the economic, social and territorial cohesion situation in Europe and the needs for future development and what to address. Before going to that, in the previous cohesion report, indeed, we also emphasized the need for nationwide structural policies to be accompanied by place-based approaches, local development of European and global development needs and resources. And indeed, this we have emphasized in the just finished programming and delivery of participatory approaches in the policy. As the place-based approaches, including urban and rural interaction and collaboration, are really the way to address at local level where the decisions are taken and to target to the real needs. And these needs also differ from place to another, and the impacts of the crisis and the changes are impacting differently in different places. So in this programming period that has just started in 21, we had the possibility to introduce so-called Europe Closer to Citizens, which is another boost to emphasize place-based programming of cohesion policy resources, which is not only about using funds and budgets, but it's also about accompanying with knowledge creation. This type of cooperation that we are experiencing also today, and other type of horizontal support, capacity building, comes along with the policy and the processes. So through the so-called Objective 5, Policy Objective 5 and Europe Closer to Citizens, we are recommending to program strategically at local level, by cities, by other type of territories to address the challenges. And these are more flexible resources available, meaning multi-thematic resources to have coherent local strategies in place. And we see that 24 member states out of 27 have made use now in the current programming of these resources, and which allows also to address urban-rural linkages, of course, and especially through functional urban area approaches and functional approaches in general, which is coming closer to the urban-rural linkages issue. You want me to continue later with the rest?
I think we should should try to take some
Okay.
time also to immediately dive into what you just said. You talked about the importance of the needs of the different needs of different regions. And we also heard Mercedes say that effective urban-rural integration will only happen if the small and the problems of the small and medium-sized cities are considered. So I would like to ask you, Frances, one of these problems is the loss of human capital, was also said. And as in your role as Secretary General for Demographic Challenges, can you explain what the Spanish approach to urban-rural linkages is in creating territorial attractiveness?
First of all, I would like to thank the opportunity of being here in this magnificent seminar, the ESPON Seminar in Cuenca, and I would also like to thank the hospitality of the city and of this wonderful province. The truth is, what we have heard so far has been really interesting, and the title of this panel is also very interesting, A Provocative City. And in this regard, I wanted, and in responding to your question, I would like to make certain considerations with regard to how we should focus or how we should channel, in my humble opinion, an issue that's really complex, as we have seen, and we have already explained about the complexity of this issue. And these new focuses do require new ways of working with the territories. They also require an in-depth analysis of how the governance models are being organized and delivered in the different territories, and also the level of institutional cooperation, which is absolutely essential in this case. Mercedes has referred to this multi-level governance, and I would add to that the actual empowerment of the territories, their capacity to decide on their future and how to find those niches of those opportunities in the different contexts and in the different realities that they must live every day. Professor Piero referred to the problems of the globalization, the management of the globalization, and how that globalization has had an impact on micro-territories, we may call them, the small municipalities and towns, on the different models for agro-industrial production and the impact it has had, in many cases, with very clear evidence in the demographics. And it is true that we are talking about a very subjective issue, the decision of where we live, which has a direct impact on demographics. We know there is a trend which is very clear, often a trend towards living in big cities, and sometimes it is not so much so. And this also supports itself at the same time on a question that's really empirical. That's the territorial reality and the capacity that that territory has to give opportunities for service generation and to create the living conditions for people wanting to live in those areas. Here the question is how we act vis-a-vis all these complexities and the disparities we see between the current time and the situation we had a couple of decades ago when we talk about development and the dynamics of the territories, how we face and how we tackle these issues and how we can create those spaces and opportunities that are really related to talent, to the capacity of retaining talent, to improve the capacities of the territories themselves when it comes to creating jobs and creating wealth and improving the living conditions, and also how to find those reasonable conditions for the territories to develop, to grow, and to generate an ecosystem that favors such development, and that ultimately has a positive impact on demographics. In Spain, as you know, and Mercedes also explained this, we have developed a public policy which is still very young, but maybe not with this global vision, with this state vision, by putting in practice certain co-governance solutions, generating the tools necessary to work together with those who are in the front line, the municipalities, the local authorities and institutions, and also introducing the vectors for innovation, for growth in rural areas. And allow me to make a last reflection on medium-sized cities. I think this is a key issue, and I think this is why this seminar is so relevant, and the conclusion that may derive from it, because we have a huge problem and we need to be honest about it. Medium-sized cities are suffering greatly, not only from a demographic point of view, but also from the point of view of the distribution of the income, the distribution of opportunities, the quality of employment being generated in those cities. And there is a problem that is in Spain, but it is also there elsewhere, not only in Spain. It is a very serious problem that we must tackle. We must work on it with honesty, and we must understand that the opportunities around service financing is vital. The opportunities of public policies that need to reorganize the markets. Mercedes was very blunt about this. Without public policies, without the organization of the market, the economy of the agglomeration will always win the game. But the consequences of the market winning is that we will be suffering a problem, because we need to ensure strategic sovereignty for our countries and for our societies. And if the medium-sized cities and the articulation of those rural spaces through middle-sized cities, those strategic sovereignties are at risk. And at the same time, we have another problem. This is the problem of the growing inequality that also calls or leads to a political conflict that we have witnessed in certain areas, which diminish the quality of our democracy. I would leave it there for now, but I think this is a really important and significant debate. It has to be tackled from the point of view of the general interest of the citizens, applying a polycentric model, as we have heard, but without forgetting that in this territorial debate, there is also a sub-debate on the equality of territories and the people living in them, and that this also has an impact on the quality of our democracies and ultimately on our immediate future as a European project, which I think is not just a hope for those of us living in Europe, but also a model for the rest of the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to hear such passionate emphasis on the role of the small and medium-sized cities, but also already some combination of the different speeches we heard, taking into account that the current policy might not have those global challenges or globalization in there yet. And Nuria, I would like to ask you to shortly reflect on what we've heard here from the point of view of the urban agenda, as I understand.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. Thank you, ESPON. Thank you, Mitert, for inviting us and let us be part of such a great and interesting panel. And I'll keep on Spanish as we have translation. And como decía, muchísimas gracias. How short should I be? Like 4 minutes, okay, that's a challenge. Okay.
I'm sorry, but I had to give the panelists only about 5 minutes, so we have time for maybe 1 or 2 short questions before we go to the family photo.
Perfecto. Tenía una pequeñita presentación, pero bueno, si no puedo ir un poco contextualizando. Y sí que me gustaría
Context rather than having my presentation, and just to go back to the activity that is being developed from the Ministry of Transport, Mobility and Urban Agenda. Yesterday, we celebrated the informal meeting of ministers where the main topics were housing and urban planning. And in the declaration that was signed yesterday, one of the main topics was to claim for this the strategic planning as a key element towards the planning and how to connect this to the housing, which is one of the hottest topics when we discuss the topic of tackling a challenge that clearly cannot be only seen from a single perspective. It has many aspects to it, and we need to have many perspectives on it as well. So in the Gijón Declaration, we talked about the potential of transforming that architecture has, and the idea of these kind cities and the benefits that are not so hard to assess with indicators in the short term. We need to talk about the midterm and the long-term aspects with considering things such as the mental health of people living in those spaces. I would like to discuss the urban agenda. I think that it is important to say that this ministry usually was connected to the physical investment infrastructures, not only connected to railway, but also green and blue infrastructures. But now we are seeing this from a more strategic viewpoint. We're talking about mobility now rather than those infrastructures. At the end of the day, we have a very clear idea of where the population is. To understand the urban agenda, we need to understand that we live in a very decentralized state where the regions, the municipalities have a lot of power. So what can the national government do? I think it is very clear that one of the big advantages is to be able to accompany the regions and the municipalities in order to have their strategy planning. The advantages that we have in Spain, that we have urban models in the mid-sized to the smaller cities, as well as in the big cities, where we talk about the mixed uses, we talk about the 15-minute walk cities. This is something that we are considering almost embedded in the planning of the cities. We also want to discuss the social cohesion that is key towards territorial cohesion. What do we aim for with the urban agenda? Well, what we try to achieve this, the blurring of the line between the rural and the urban. We want to achieve sustainability. We want to achieve the SDGs and comply with the 2030 agenda from the cities, making sustainable, inclusive, safe, resilient cities that are capable of facing the numerous challenges that we face nowadays under strategic umbrellas. For instance, we have this idea of beauty that we also want to claim for our cities. The urban agenda as an urban policy national-wide and as a lever that has a strategic view, that has an integral approach, that is a tool that enables us to really ground the big challenges in each of the municipalities and the regions so that we can provide a real context to the project. Thanks to the Next Gen funds, we have over 120 pilot projects ongoing around the state where we try to achieve the 2030 goals from the urban planning. So how can we contribute to the demographic challenge? We have to say that 14 municipalities with less than 5,000 inhabitants already have a plan. There are 24 municipalities between 5,000 and 20,000 inhabitants that are already deploying the strategies, and we are cooperating with the diputaciones, the diputations. We're talking about the town halls and the regional governments also that are participating in this. We can also talk about specific cases such as the Mancomunidad de Alto Tajo, which is a region connected to the Tajo River that encompasses several municipalities with around 700 inhabitants, and they have managed to establish their multi-level governance plans and identify the potential for working together and entering a dialogue that allows them to try and to have new populations settling in the area and having the young population living in those little municipalities, staying in the area and finding new ways of defending their territory from the local perspective in order to achieve global goals. I hope we have more time to discuss this further.
Thank you so much for that very speedy explanation going through all the urban agenda, and I'm very glad you did so, because unfortunately we are running out of time. We're already across, and that will be actually time taken off our coffee break. So I would like to take the time to also thank Piero. He was apologizing for the technical difficulties and that it was no longer very well audible. And he will probably send his complete story. So I think we can ask ESPON to put that online as well, so you can read that afterwards, after the seminar. I would like to ask if there are any Slido questions, if they could be put on the screen for us, to take just a few minutes to see those. And maybe in the meantime, while we can read them, ask Maria to come back to, because I think I saw you wanting to react from an European point of view to the local plans put into place.
Just to go to more practical implementation also, and what is on offer for small and medium-sized urban areas. So I think now it is key to make sure that the resources are used for local planning and in cooperation with the local partnership. So this is the key for integrated urban, local, territorial strategies to tackle these issues and indeed to make it relevant for local level. This is not always, of course, about cohesion policy only. So we are cooperating with other European policies and funds. So best is to make use of all of those together. And today also we have referred to territorial agenda, urban agenda. This is very much about cooperation as well, and through those strategic charters, also the role of small and medium-sized areas have been recognized clearly, and the need to tackle urban-rural divide. This is our common course.
In that sense, I would like to also point your attention to the third question on the screen, and that's saying instead of equality between urban and rural areas, shouldn't we speak of rather establishing synergies? That is a very interesting question in that sense. Could you maybe...
So I just wanted also to highlight that even if we are talking a lot about urban dimension of cohesion policy, this urban dimension is for cities of all sizes, from small to the big, and including urban-rural linkages, very much recommended. And in this functional urban area and functional approach in planning and designing strategies, this is already resulting in good results in more involvement of smaller urban areas, small places, because of this continuum that we have also been discussing today. So indeed it's about cooperation and linkages, and this is maybe the biggest challenge there. It's between administrations, between places, between policies, funds that we need to overcome.
In that sense, speaking about between policies, the second question, Nuria says, urban-rural integration policies of mobilities, and the first question says the population issue is closely related to the level of demography, and coming up with very practical solutions. How do we indeed combine the demographic challenges and using mobility policies within these smaller and medium-sized cities to provide and hopefully indeed come up with solutions that are that practical?
In my view, it's key to claim for the urban agenda policies and the like, because they give us a diagnosis that enable us to establish mechanisms to tackle the demographic challenge. Clearly, everything that has to do with favoring a sustainable mobility, not only inside the territories or the cities, but also connected with the rest of the territory, can be a key factor. There is no single recipe for all territories, so this is why we really need to make a clear diagnosis related to the context, based, for instance, on the needs of a mid-sized city such as Cuenca. We have seen after the pandemic that many other possibilities have arisen, and we need to have this connection between the railway transport connecting big urban areas such as Madrid and Valencia with other areas. And these offer great opportunities that we can profit from the perspective of the sustainable development. I have heard other speakers talking about, for instance, things that had to do with the development from the tourism side of things, always taking into account the avoidance of the gentrification and promoting these night stays that favor the development of the areas, and also considering the possibility of promoting teleworking, so that we understand infrastructures from a broader viewpoint that favor all sorts of opportunities that are very diverse. And I have to insist here in the importance of having a very realistic diagnosis that enable us to create strategies that will lead to the achievement of the sustainable goals that we have in mind.
Thank you so much. And I think I would like to ask you for a last reaction, and also with the same passion, maybe formulate what is the hardest, most difficult challenge we face thinking about the areas demographically.
Well, I think that first of all, what we need to do is to have rural spaces to stop being subsidized areas, that they are not anymore in the lowest part of the pyramid. This is something that affects even the self-esteem of the people living in the rural areas, that feel completely dependent on certain policies that, if you allow me to be blunt, are clearly not smart. We need to have territories that have their own capacity for functioning in terms of mobility, of solving problems. You have mentioned the issue of housing, that is a big problem in our country nowadays, but also these territories need to be looked from a very cross-cutting perspective. We need to embrace all the issues and have a new outlook on the territories that really ends with a silo view that we have been applying up until now. There is something that affects the European Union and also the governments of all the states. How can we provide the territories the planning engineering that enables us to really reconfigure the layout of the territories? And when we look at the data about who has access to the European funds, we see that the rural areas and the smaller cities are far behind the metropolitan areas. and the largest cities. So this is a real unbalanced treatment that we see towards the smaller and rural areas. We need to reflect on this, and we need to implement measures that make the territorial approach fairer for these regions that are vital for the whole of the society.
I feel that Mercedes has to react to all this. So just one short reaction, and then we'll go back to wrapping it up. Mercedes.
Sí.
It works.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'd like to point out that the inclusion of small and mid-sized cities together with the rural integration needs to be understood from the perspective of the strong, heavy metropolitan crisis that we're seeing, high pollution rates, health issues, social exclusion, discrimination, and all these issues can be tackled in an exemplary manner from these new territories. We cannot forget that it is that they need to be territories of opportunity versus the issues we find at the urban areas. Also, quality and synergies do not need to be mutually exclusive. We need to provide equal rights, but based on synergies in terms of actions, both at a social level and an economic level. I talked about the need of creating this value chain that has inflows in these systems that are between the rural and urban areas. Forgive me for saying all this very quickly, but I am at your disposal for answering any questions you might have later on. Now, how can we revert this demographic situation? I've participated in a European Union program aimed at the region of Aragon specifically. And what we saw that the greater demands from the citizens in the rural areas were connected with the need of employment, the mobility opportunities, housing opportunities, quality of life, and digitization. This means that there is a number of aspects that Mr. Boyer was pointing out earlier are very cross-cutting issues, and they require a co-governance at several levels, and it also requires a sort of transformation. We could try to see if we are measuring cohesion properly according to the traditional models. Maybe we should change this measurement, and if we are assessing this cohesion at the national and regional level, maybe we should go deeper into this and go more granular. Maybe we can discuss this further later on, and forgive me again for my voice.
And I would like to stress that that is a good idea. Please approach any of the speakers with further questions, because unfortunately, after hearing this session that I would say revolves around the importance of recognizing and prioritizing the role of intermediate and rural areas in the context of the challenges we're facing, and also emphasizing that we need to move away from past models. There's still so much to be discussed, but unfortunately we have many more very interesting sessions to be coming. So before we all wrap it up here, I would like to stress that we are all now expected to walk towards the large dinosaur and take a family photo with, well, the paleontological animals that we now see outside, and I'm very much excited. I'm going to really like that picture probably. And after that, the sessions will go on, and the next session will start at 12. So a short break and at 12 the next session, and a family photo first. But Hannah's coming.
Sorry. Hello, we are about to take a short break. And as Marcia said, now we're going to take the family picture, which is a very important event in today's journey. Please, an important note, please do not leave the room with the translation receivers. It is important that you leave the receivers in the table at every coffee break, at lunch, and when the sessions end today. And please be prompt. We kindly request you to be prompt and to be back here at 12 p.m. because we are really short on time. Thank you.